Channing Ferrer, what's your superpower and how does that serve your mission to help others?
Yeah. I'd say my superpower is bringing people together. I'm really good at understanding strengths and weaknesses for both and understanding how they kind of cohese together as a team and as a group. So often when I've been put into leadership roles, I've had a chance to kind of assess the team and figure out what those strengths are, where those weaknesses are. And we really lean into doubling down on strengths. That's the most important thing. And understanding how you bring that team together as one cohesive unit.
Very nice. Flywheel leadership is about discovering and practicing the leadership systems that bring out the best in each of us and our teams. What's a story that comes to mind that exemplifies exceptional or unique styles of leadership from you?
Sure. Let's see. I'm going to go back and reflect on my role as the chief sales officer at SEMrush, where when I stepped in, we really needed to revamp the sales team. And we were order takers, not sellers. And that's easy and great, but it's not the way a sales team needs to get built. Order taking can be done through automation, not through humans, really. So we had to make some hard decisions. We had to sit down and look at the team and say, who fits well here? How do we preferably upskill folks to be true sellers? And then people who didn't want to or weren't ready to do that, we had to exit. And we had to turn over about 50% of the team in doing that. And it's not easy to do. It's not nothing any leader wants to have to do. But in doing that, we really were able to make a much stronger sales team. And you had to make some of those hard decisions. But a lot of those decisions, it was really fun to see the people who wanted to go along that journey and learn how to really, truly be sellers. And those people continued to excel. And then there was a handful that didn't want that. Order taking was more their preference, and they moved on. In some cases, they moved to different roles, and in some cases, they left the business. But I think that was it was a challenging role and challenging opportunity, but it very clearly played out in the positive.
Very good. Thanks for sharing, Channing. When it comes to, I guess, advice you would give other leaders that are in similar situations, like what is that kind of first one or two pieces of advice to help kind of calm down and assess the situation? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think often as a new leader, excuse me, as a new sales leader, even you're brought in, you need to make those assessments, those decisions on your team. And is this the right team? Do I need to make changes? I think the first and most basic one is every time I've stepped into a new leadership role, you want to make those decisions quickly. You don't want to let things linger. And I think that's probably the clearest point of advice is in the past, I think as I was earlier in my career, I let decisions linger. I couldn't decide. I kind of indecisiveness, by the way, is a decision. It's not a good decision. So I think really being decisive and making those judgment calls early, your first kind of 30, 60, 90-day window, it's really a 90-day window. I think you have to make some of those clear decisions on personnel and people and roles. And that doesn't mean you need to go in and fire a bunch of people, but it does mean you have to assess, is this person in the right role? Or do I need to make some adjustments? Maybe the role changes. Maybe they move into it somewhere else in the business. Maybe we realign on what their goals are. But I think making those decisions early, you're going to make those decisions with 70% of the knowledge that you need. It's not going to be 100% of the knowledge, and that's okay.
Certainly. Completely agree. That's great advice, especially for up and coming leaders. Something that stood out from your LinkedIn page. At the heart of my approach is a simple philosophy. Understand deeply, act strategically, and lead passionately. Please tell me more about what that means to you, Channing.
Yeah. So we'll break that down. So I think understand deeply, I really find it important to understand through data. And as you look at my experience and my background, running ops at HubSpot, for example, I was very data driven. I've been in and around the data world. I came up as a financial consultant coming out of school. And so data is a bit of I wouldn't call it a passion, but it's definitely an area where I'm very comfortable with. But also I like sales, and I've really grown to love sales and been in sales leadership roles for frankly most of my career. So when I think of understand deeply, I understand through data. I need to step in and really understand what's working and what's not. And if something isn't working, I will go deep. I've been known to do daily one-on-ones with people to really try to dig in deep on what's happening. I'll be building the model alongside the analyst to really understand how the model is working. So that's understand deeply. And then kind of how we carry that forward. So once you understand, then we can begin to lead forward. We can begin to build that strategy and drive towards where you want to go. The passion component, I forgot how I worded it exactly, but the third component there, the passion, I think lead with compassion, maybe. I really think that's important. So once you have a path forward, you need to get your team to rally around you and to believe in that path. And one of the things I'll say is often you have to say things 10 times for it to be heard once. So I'm going to say things with energy, but I'm going to say it a lot. And I'm going to say the same thing over and over again until I'm sick of hearing it. And then people begin to listen, and people begin to hear it. So I find I'm pretty good at simplifying complex situations. So once I understand deeply, I kind of gather all this information, we boil it down to a simple path forward, and we'll try to, again, have that as a 3-pillar strategy or something along those lines. I love the where you play, how you win strategy elements. And then we'll talk about those things constantly. And I just bring it back and bring it back. And then when I begin to hear my team talking about that, and I begin to hear the front line talking about it, I feel like the message has landed, but people have to say it for me to believe that it's been heard. So that's kind of the lead passionately. We're gonna organize around a couple things, and then we're gonna go after those couple things aggressively, and we're gonna say those things over and over and over again, so that we all believe in them and see the path forward.
Jenny, that is so true. I've seen it many times where leaders, and I've been there myself, of course, too, where leaders feel like they have to have all these new ideas, fresh way of saying things, catchphrases, whatever it is. And it's like a constant evolution of like trying to come up with the next thing. Whereas a lot of times it's that first 1 or 2 things that you hit on that you knew about through those assessments and things of that nature, where you realize you just need to continue finding different ways to say the same thing or repeating yourself on loop to make sure that it is heard that one time and that it is clear message, and that vision and plan forward, everybody's on the same page and there is no ambiguity on, what does Cheney expect or another leader expect, right? It is very clear because everybody can recite back to you what you often say, whether it's situational or broadly, right?
Exactly. And the visual element of this that I love, and it's just a very simple visual, it actually has gotten me interested in the idea of rowing, even though I'm not a rower at all, but that visual of everyone rowing together in a boat, the 8-man boat, and all the oars kind of going in the same direction. And that's what you want. You want everyone rowing in that same direction. And kind of the alternative visual is you sit in a circular boat and everyone's rowing, you're just going in a circle. All right. So I think just getting everyone aligned and focused and going in the same direction is the key to any strategy. Your strategy can be mediocre, but if you got true alignment and passion behind the path you're going down, you're going to be successful.
Certainly. I'd like to understand a little bit more about you and your story. Could you walk us through your journey a bit?
Sure. Yeah. So I started my career, as I mentioned, in financial consulting, and I came out of school, went into a financial management consulting job. I thought I wanted to solve problems. That was my idea. And consultants solve problems. They get parachuted into, different projects and solve these problems. And that sounded great. And I could have variety. I've always enjoyed some element of variety, so I could kind of go from one project to the other. So I started doing that, had a great early experience there. And then company began to kind of shift around their strategy. So I said, I'm going to look around. I'm young. Let me look around. Had a job offer from Credit Suisse to go work at their equity research desk covering Latin America. I could speak Spanish back in the day. It's faded a bit now, but so it sounded like a great job. It's this kind of big bank. It's one of those kind of things you can build a career on. Every senior person I talked to looking for advice said, oh yeah, take that job. It's a great job to have. And then I had an offer at the same time from this company called Capital IQ, young startup fintech business. Job was rather ambiguous. They were kind of a little bit unclear, but the people had a lot of passion. And they were really excited about what they were building and doing. And I figured I was young. I'm going to take that job. And so I went over there and started there against the advice of most people. And I started in essentially a solution engineering type role. We called it something different back then, but it was essentially that solution engineer. So I had a finance background. I could go in and train their customers on how to use the product, how to get it set up, implement it, build some models for them. So started doing that. Right away, I realized I didn't do my due diligence all that well. We had no customers, actually. So again, I was young. I didn't ask all the questions. So I was brought in on all the sales calls. And the sales reps really didn't know the product that well. They didn't know how to ask good questions. So right away, the first couple meetings, I started jumping in and just asking questions. And these were investment bankers and hedge funds analysts. And I'd ask them kind of some financial questions around the problems that they're having. And then we'd start talking about how to solve those problems, and I'd start showing the product. So pretty quickly, all the sales reps grabbed me for all their meetings and said, can you go and just do what you did last time? So I'd go in there and ask some questions, and we'd show the product, and people got excited, and we'd sell the product. And then pretty quickly, I realized we didn't need the sales rep there. I could go just do the meetings myself. And then all of a sudden, and this was over about a 6-month window, I realized I'm selling it, and I'm liking it, actually. And this is kind of fun. And so I very quickly became a salesperson, very quickly became one of the top sales reps, and began running some of the biggest customers we had, and started hiring other people and so on. And kind of fast forward about 12, 13 years, we built a business that through some acquisitions and a merger with S&P, we were about $1 billion, just under $1 billion revenue business, right? So great growth story, lots of interesting learnings along the course there, great experience. Ended up leaving. The culture changed a lot. We were a great young, tech business. That merger kind of changed us a bit. So ended up running a bit of the sales while I was there, that combined unit, running sales ops actually for about 1.5 years. And then I moved. I ran international sales prior to that for Capital IQ. So and ended up moving over to be a chief sales officer. Moved on. I won't go through all the other experiences, but moved into kind of, I'll hit on the learnings. So there's a long answer, but I think there's some interesting learnings here. So
Yeah, for sure.
the first learning was I love the culture. Culture is so important to me. I overlooked that when I went to the next role, and this was a chief sales officer role at a company where the culture was not, CEO didn't really foster what I would call a good culture. He likes competition, he liked conflict across his executive team. That's not what I consider to be a healthy culture. So I tried to stomach that out for about 1.5 years, and then I realized it's not the right fit, and I realized culture is number one for me. So I looked for just a good culture company. I didn't care the role. Like, I just want to be part of a good company, and then I'll figure things out thereafter. So I went on and joined Acquia, and at the time I'd moved up to Boston. I was living in New York City earlier. Acquia had a reputation as being a great culture business in Boston. So followed my way in, talked to the chief sales officer, and I'm like, I want a job. Tell me what it is, and I'll take it. And so after some conversations, we hit it off, and he's like, sure, I'll carve out a role for you. So I ran half of the sales team for him, did that for a little while, was part of the leadership team, was asked to also run sales ops because they had a lot of process changes they needed, and they just weren't very process oriented, and I'm typically been very process driven. So I started running sales ops. Then I reached out to other folks in my network to kind of get some best practices in sales ops, because I really didn't have a lot of ops experience. And spoke to a guy running ops at HubSpot, and kind of fast forward, he called me back a few months later, said, you should come to HubSpot. And after a few coffees and chats, I eventually said yes. I was reluctant in the beginning, but eventually said yes. Great opportunity as well. HubSpot was about $250 million in revenue at the time. They wanted a sales leader who knew ops, and that's what I considered myself. And so I was able to kind of step into a unique ops role where I really was helping co-lead sales in many ways. Eventually the chief sales officer left, so I co-ran sales with 2 other people. The 3 of us were heads of sales, actually all together, co-running sales for several years, reporting to Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot. And I was there for about 6 years. Great experience at HubSpot, learned a lot, had a whole bunch of different takeaways from that one, but all very positive. So we were about 1.5 billion in revenue when I left. So a nice journey. Then went from there to a young startup, didn't really work out, took on a CRO role, moved on to SEMrush as the chief sales officer. Then we're going quick now. Then Brandwatch, where I got to be president, running everything: marketing, product, tech, sales, account management. And then now over at Brevo, where I was an advisor for Brevo for about a year, or a little over a year prior to joining. And then I joined about 6 months ago as the CRO and CEO of the Americas.
Very nice. Thank you for walking through that. I know that's tough to hit on all those points. Channing, I do have to ask, with HubSpot being such a, being one of those startups back in the day and now being so much bigger, like, how was that working with Brian Halligan and Dharmesh? It had to be some kind of experience then.
Yeah, Brian's a great guy. I can still drop him a text. He's such a good people person, such a great connector, and he's a salesperson at heart, but he's just a people person. But he's also a great entrepreneur. He's always thinking forward looking. He's kind of thinking, how do we do something different? What he would say, how do we zig when everyone else is zagging? Or how do we zag when everyone else is zigging, I guess. But, what do we do differently? Because that's what makes someone successful. And also, the other thing we would talk a lot about is how do we have multiple irons in the fire, if you will? How do we have kind of multiple, what we reference as S-curves occurring? We need to constantly be trying new things because a lot of them aren't going to work. But for us to build a really great business, we need to have a lot of different angles for how that business can grow. And some of them are going to work and some of them won't. And the other thing he would always say is, I want to build a business that my grandkids are proud of. So yeah, really kind of looking far into the future. And interesting, Brian and Dharmesh are, and when you look at them at first, they seem like such different people. They're actually, in some ways, very opposite of what you think. Brian's an introvert, and Dharmesh, is a self-proclaimed introvert. Dharmesh is amazing on stage, and you kind of look at him on stage, he actually comes out like an extrovert in many ways. So they're very interesting in how they kind of counter one another. They work well together, but they also have their own styles. Dharmesh loves to code in the middle of the night and come up with new products. Brian Halligan is much more of that kind of person-to-person connector and again, sales type of personality. So it was a lot of fun working with both of them. Again, I worked a lot more with Brian than with Dharmesh, but I had lots of opportunity with both of them.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Brevo. First of all, your responsibility. Let's walk through that, and then we'll get into Brevo itself.
Sure. So again, two elements in my role. One is CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. So running all sales and customer success. So kind of new business acquisition, inclusive of some of our marketing, and then our kind of renewals, how we keep our customers happy and grow our customer base. My second responsibility is the CEO of the Americas. And this is what's interesting in Brevo. This is my first opportunity to work for a company I'm not in the headquarters. It's not headquartered here in Boston or, in my backyard in a sense. We're headquartered over in Europe. So I'm helping us build that US presence, that America's presence. And that means helping think about things like HR and how do we figure out where we're going to hire and all the personnel elements to it, the financial elements to building a business in the US. So it's really interesting. I've really enjoyed that because it's fun to have new challenges and new opportunities. And then, of course, I think the CRO role feels very natural to me now. And, we've got a great product, which is always one of the key things of any CRO looks for. You want a good product. So it's been a lot of fun stepping into that CRO role while having a chance to help us build the Americas business at the same time.
Very cool. I'm excited to talk about Brevo. It's such a big story from what I've seen. So we can talk about a lot of different aspects here, but Brevo is coming off of €500 equity raise, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah.
Reaching unicorn landscape. That's a big deal in itself, right? And you said you're 6 months in, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of moving parts there, right? Big player in Europe already. Is growing its US footprint. Big reason why you're in the role. Brevo is a target to surpass €200 million in ARR in 2025. What is that number in 26, if you're able to share?
Yeah, so we don't publish our 26 numbers, but we did beat out the 200 million in 25, so we're over 200 million already, and we're going at a healthy clip. So we'll continue to see that accelerate here in 26 and beyond.
Very nice. So what's the core work and differentiation with how you serve your clients at Brevo?
Sure. So I'd say in terms of how we think about our customers, it's similar in some ways to HubSpot. I mean, we really are customer centric, and we're just going through our customer QBR earlier this week, looking at our customer satisfaction ratings, looking at our NPS ratings, and we get a very high score from our customers. And that's something we really pride ourselves on. It's one of the reasons we often win business, retain business, is that customer focus that we have. And that's something that is at our core. It's something that we'll continue to have. We talk about one of our values is walk in their shoes, and we apply that through the lens of the customer, of course. So when we think about walking in their shoes, we're thinking, what does this mean to the customer? What does this problem mean to them? How can I help them? How can I sit in their shoes, sit in their seat to understand what's going wrong, or what do they need, or how can we, again, help? We try to apply that both, of course, from the sales motion, but right on through that customer renewal, customer success, customer support motion, and helping them. So I think that's something, again, it's been a nice differentiator for us, especially as we look at it across the breadth of who we sell to. We sell to small businesses, one employee businesses, right on up to pretty big enterprise businesses. And we apply this same logic across all. Now, obviously, we can't support those small businesses to the same level with the same human effort, but we try to do the best we can there. Our support team, is known for getting on phone calls with people when chat or email isn't working, and just trying to go that little extra step makes a big difference.
Very nice. So how does Brevo use AI to foster more human and personalized connections rather than just increasing volume, for example?
Yeah, so I'll talk about it through two lenses. One, through what do we do internally, and then number two is kind of how does the product work as well to foster AI. So I think internally, one of the things I think we all collectively as humans are realizing is there's times where we don't want to talk to people. There's times where we'd rather have a bot, a tool, a system kind of answer us than a human answer us. And I think that's healthy. That's okay. It's the way we're going, the world we're going in. Look at my kids; they're on their phones all the time, and I'm sure everyone else's kids are the same way. But it's the nature of who we are. We like to leverage technology to get answers to things, and that's why we use ChatGPT and Gemini and others to answer stuff. So what that means is we want to give our customer base the opportunity to get answers through automation. That benefits us because it makes things a little bit easier. We don't need maybe humans all the time, but also really benefits the customers. They can go directly to a bot, an agent, and engage directly. So we have that built into the product. We've got a tool called RR where you can just go and chat and have a conversation. It'll help figure out what you're doing. We can do that through our chat environment, and either from a prospect perspective, you can kind of go to the website, or you can go through as a customer support request. We also support our teams through AI. So our customer support teams, when a question comes in, it suggests an answer to them. So if there's a human chat going on, AI will be suggesting responses for them in real time, so then they can use those responses to follow up, and it's feeding off of a knowledge base that we have internally. So that's an element of helping our teams to be more responsive, of course, to our customers as well. Beyond that, I think one of the things that we continue to explore from a product perspective is how do we give our customers the optionality for true agentic AI? So we have agent elements to what we do. Again, Aura is our AI agent that's built into the product, but that's not agentic. A lot of what software does today is you have agents, we look at HubSpot or Salesforce or others. They've got these agents that'll do things for you. You tell the agent what you want it to do. It comes back with a recommendation. You say, okay, you kind of review it. There's a bunch of back and forth. And many people want that right now. It makes sense. But also where I see the world going, and as Wayne Gretzky famously tells us, skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. Agentic is where it's going. And that might take a year, it might take 3 years. It's hard to say. But when I say agentic, what I mean by that is truly automated marketing, truly automated sales engagement. And one of those things that we're launching shortly is that automated BDR. So you can just click a button, say, here's the type of engagement I want, here's the frequency, here's the depth of touches, maybe kind of give it a little bit of direction, because everyone wants to have, again, some element of control, or you can let it figure it out on its own, and then go off and try to generate some leads for me. And it'll go and send some emails, and you can have it even make some phone calls for you if you want, and begin to generate the lead flow. And that's true agentic. That's where it's just doing things for you, and you just sit back and see what happens. And it'll learn as it goes, and it gets better and smarter as it goes. So again, we're kind of giving the optionality to say, do I want agents, or let's begin to build some things that are kind of truly agentic AI.
Very interesting. I played around with Brevo a little bit last night, so I got a little bit of a feel for it. So seems really intuitive to get to use, but very powerful with everywhere you can take it as well. So
nice.
As you break into the U.S. market, I guess first of all, how long have you had some kind of U.S. presence with clients? Let's start there.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't actually know, but we've got about 50 people in the U.S. So we're a good-sized business globally. We're over 1,000 employees globally, but we also have a presence here. We've got our support team here locally in the U.S. We've got folks in Boston, folks in Austin, Texas, folks out in Seattle. We've got some folks up in Toronto. So we do have people spread around the U.S. Our self-serve portion of our business has been active the longest in the US. And that goes back several years. I don't actually know the first year when we had customers, but it's definitely, probably 4 or 5 years of some sort of presence of customer base. But I'd say really only in the past 2 years have we really begun to try to kind of push into the US or begin to build up that team and that presence more clearly. And we've done that mostly on the self-serve side. So the self-serve side is where you can kind of go and purchase things for starting at $9 a month. You can kind of purchase our product, and that can build you, add more capabilities and functionality and volume of engagements into the product. But it's typically going to be a low-cost option, and people who are using other self-serve products like Constant Contact or MailChimp, are going to look at Brevo. So we've seen a lot of progress there. More recently is really where we started pushing is on the mid-market side. And we're seeing a lot of success in Europe on the mid-market side. And Brevo as a business got started very much as a self-serve business. Just in the past, I'd say 3 years or so, have we really shifted more into the mid-market. And we're seeing a lot of growth in the mid-market. And we've made about 11 acquisitions over the past 2+ years to bring together a lot of capabilities. And what's interesting in doing that is we're not just building integrations with all these different 11 products. We've actually rebuilt them into Brevo. So we've said, you've got some great core functionality. For example, we acquired a company called Octolus that's a CDP, and great functionality. But I believe your CDP needs to sit as a centerpiece of your marketing platform, not off to the side. So we've been rebuilding, and we're like 80% of the way done with this, rebuilding Octolus into Brevo. So you have that marketing automation platform with a CDP fully embedded into it. And it's not just some integration that passes data here and there. So that's what we've been doing with a lot of these products. And that's why it's taken us a little bit of time to, I'd say, be mid-market ready. But just recently, have we got to the point where we're feeling the product's there, the functionality's there, and thus is the right time. And this is where we're also seeing the success. We're seeing mid-market companies come to us and buy. And again, that's more in Europe right now because we've got more brand recognition there. But I expect that to begin to take off here in 2026 in the US as well.
There you go. What are the priorities and challenges at this stage with really growing the US presence and business overall?
Yeah. So it's interesting because as I mentioned before, this is the first time I've been sitting not at the headquarters. I'm kind of often at the headquarters helping grow the European business or the Asia business or other countries, of course. So when I think about doing this in the US is the biggest market out there. And it's a priority for any business that has ambitions of being $1 billion in revenue business, as we do. We need to be a big player in the US. So we need to figure out how to do that. And as we look at our ICP and target market, we do have a bunch of customers that are small businesses, 1 to 10 employees, and we'll continue to grow that base. We're seeing great traction there, so that's gonna build over time. Our next ICP is kind of from the 10 to about 50 employee base, and this is a mix of self-serve or our lower end of mid-market. And we've got either the self-serve product or we've got the pro product. So we've got a nice product fit there for that size. And then we've got what we call our enterprise product that goes on up into mid-market and into the enterprise world. So we've got a good product fit, I believe. Number one, do we have good product fit? I do believe so. As we look at our ICPs, we've got kind of 3 different groupings and product fit across each grouping. All right. Number 2 is brand recognition. And that's a big one in the US. And there's a lot of players in the US, and we've got a short attention span as Americans. We've just got a lot of optionality. So why bother, not have a short attention span? So we need to make sure we've got brand awareness. And brand awareness comes from word of mouth. Brand awareness comes from paid ad spend. Brand awareness comes from targeted marketing as well. So we're doing all of those. We've got to be in the right place at the right time for our buyers. We've got to be in our market, but we've got to be building that brand awareness, and we've got to be building that trust. And the best way to build that trust is through good customers. So that's kind of my big belief is we've got to have customers that are happy, that are satisfied, that will be advocates for us. And then you can multiply your reach through that advocacy element. But you got to start somewhere. So we're working on that. That takes some time, but we've got those good customers, and we're working on building that advocacy through those good customers. And then we're also working on kind of the brand awareness element, and it's getting out there and talking about Brevo and making Brevo more visible to the customer base that needs it.
Very good. Jenny, you helped scale HubSpot. From my understanding, at least, you can correct me if I'm wrong, from 200 million to 1.5 billion. You were a big part of that. What is similar and what is different for bringing that experience from HubSpot over to Brevo.
Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting when I look at, we kind of went through my quick journey earlier, and HubSpot, actually before HubSpot, Acquia, 200 million when I joined. HubSpot, we're about like somewhere around 225, I think, when I joined. SEMrush, we were around like 275, I think, and there's all million in revenue, 275 million when I joined. Brandwatch, about 300 million when I joined. Brevo, just under 200 million. So in the same range, all these businesses. So it's kind of fun that I have experience. I've got the experience to say, what does it mean to take a business from that kind of good size? 200 million is a good size business, but good size to a great size business. And I've done it, clearly done it twice now. When I look back at Capital IQ, we went to $1 billion revenue business. HubSpot 1.5 billion, and then the other experiences were great. I wasn't there long enough to see it, get to that size. Weren't growing as fast in those ones, but nonetheless, I think I've got a good amount of scar tissue there. So first of all, that's helpful, and then applying that now to Brevo. So I think I really like this size of a business because we're at a point where we've got proof of concept. There's clearly 200 million. You've got a lot of customers that like you. And now it's all about how do we scale? How do we scale effectively? How do we build the operations, the process, the systems, the hiring, the awareness, and all those things? And that's really what we need to do at Brevo, is build those processes and systems to create awareness, but also to make sure we're set up for success. And some little simple things that I think when you're a smaller business, you don't need to worry about as much. But when you get to this size, you have to really be thoughtful of is your headcount planning. How are we planning our hiring? How are we planning our headcount? And ensuring that we hit that headcount. Because if we don't, then you miss your goal for the year. So we've got to make sure we have that talent management strategy. We've got to make sure we've got the value mapping on what our customers see as value and how we can position that value. We've got to make sure we've got the product feedback loop right. So when customers are saying certain things, make sure that feedback loop is getting to product. Because now you're 1,000+ employees. That product feedback loop is so critical. When you're 10 people, the salesperson can go talk to the CEO and can talk to the head of product all in the same conversation, and it's super easy. And this becomes a lot more challenging, the feedback loop. So all these things are critical elements to growth when you're at this size. And that's what we're focusing in on, is we got to get that done. But there's really important ones. Product feedback is number one. Customer feedback, of course, as well. Those are kind of 1A, 1B. And then internal processes on top of that.
Very interesting with your experience with the similar size organizations. What's the most fulfilling aspect of your work so far with Brevo, with being about 6 months in?
So the first thing that I've really enjoyed is the people. Like it's a good team, and it's, as an advisor, I didn't really have a chance to get to know the team all that well. I got to know the CEO and some of the executives a bit, but I really didn't get to know the team. So being able to step in and get a feel for the team, it's always a little bit of an unknown when you join a company. You kind of have a chance to interview and meet a few people, but really what's that culture like? And it's a great culture. And so that's the first thing. And that culture transcends into how people engage with customers as well. So that's been great to see and validate. Of course, I had that assumption, but obviously want to validate when you join. So that's been, I think, that's been great. The other one then, I think beyond that, is the way we solve for customers. And we still try to do our best to act like a young startup and be scrappy. And we've got to balance building a sustainable business with solving every little problem, because there's always lots of little problems that pop up. But we jump right in and solve those problems quickly. We don't sit around and put it through some big extended process to try to figure it out. There was an example the other day where we were up against Klaviyo on a deal, and Klaviyo had a feature that, the customer wanted a feature. Klaviyo didn't have the feature. We didn't have the feature. We sat down, and within 48 hours, we said, we're going to have this feature done in the next 2 months. And we beat that timeline, by the way, as well. And the customer was. And that's pretty impressive, I think, to be able to do that and say that and spin that around that quickly, with the decision made and execution on it. And it wasn't a small little thing. It was actually a pretty noticeable feature. Fortunately, it was already on our radar and our roadmap. We were just able to pull it forward a little bit. But Klaviyo couldn't do that. So it's nice to be able to have that kind of customer solve mentality across the business as well.
Very cool. What is one thing you've changed your mind on over the past of your life or your career, Channing?
Changed my mind on? let's see. So I'm going to say it's maybe evolved. Well, and there's a few things that have evolved, and probably it's the clearest one is really around my thinking on leadership and how I think of leading, leading from the front and leading with your strengths as well. So I think when I go back earlier days in my career, I thought I had to be the perfect leader. I had to solve for everything. Kind of what does a great leader look like? You have all these different traits and attributes. I need to be good at all of those traits to be a good leader. That's not really true. You need to figure out what your strengths are and then lean heavily into those strengths. And your weaknesses can't drag you down, but you don't need to fix all your weaknesses. I think it's okay to acknowledge them and let them be weaknesses and improve a little bit. But if you spend too much time trying to fix those, you get bogged down in fixing weaknesses and not focusing on doubling down on your strengths. So I think that's probably the one area it's not like changing my decision, but it's really changed my thinking, the evolution of my thinking, to really focus in on those strengths. And it's something that I think as I've been able to do that, I tell a lot of people that same thing is let's work together to identify those strengths of yours and call them superpowers often, and then lean into those things because that's what's going to drive me forward.
That's an important takeaway. Thank you. Before we wrap, what have we missed that we should have talked about, especially with Brevo? Anything you want to highlight?
Let's see. We have a good chance to, I think, cover how we think about things and where we're going. Maybe one little thought that I think is interesting is the ecosystem of where we play. And we, the whole MarTech world that we're in, that I've been a part of for a while now, between again HubSpot and Brandwatch and SEMrush and now Brevo, is a pretty expansive world, and it covers the B2B space, it covers the B2C space, small business, large businesses. So there's a lot of little nuanced elements of that. A lot of players in there. Scott Brinker, who runs Chief MarTech, if anyone's ever seen his report, it's extremely extensive, like thousands and thousands of players. And a lot of them are little small players that kind of add a little kind of small value adds. Where Brevo really fits in is in the B2C space. But what we're doing also is we're expanding into the B2B space. And I have a belief that B2C and B2B marketing and B2C, B2B kind of go-to-market are coming closer and closer together. And I think B2B can learn a lot from the B2C world. B2C is high volume. You have a lot of consumers, usually lower price point, higher volume, going to do a lot with data, different way to engage most likely, whereas B2B is going to be a lot more targeted. But now what we can do is we can use AI to help be a lot more targeted in a much more expansive way. So B2C can learn from B2B and vice versa. And thus, I think these two worlds are coming closer together. And I think the use cases, the needs are becoming more and more aligned as well. For example, loyal customers are critical on both sides. And I think B2C used to kind of focus in on this idea of loyalty and how do I get repeat customers? I want to see, a customer that spent $10 in their shopping cart continue to buy $10, every few months. That's your repeat loyal customer. But the same thing applies to B2B. You want to have repeat customers because those repeat customers aren't just adding value on a repeat basis, they're advocates for you. And that advocacy, like I was talking about earlier, that advocacy is so important in marketing these days because there's so much noise out there with all these different tools and products and everything else. It's very hard to be found. But people trust human connections. They trust their friends and they trust the people they hear about, even in social media. And that's how they buy now. So I think that idea of loyal customer, again, is a great example of how B2B and B2C are blending together. So anyway, just the thought that I had as I talk about Brevo, we're kind of sitting across B2C, but also blending into B2B. And I think that's the way that the world is going in the marketing and sales world these days.
Certainly. What do you want those you've worked with to say about your impact on them?
So it's funny, I wrote something down a while ago. I don't remember word for word here, but I went through an exercise 15 years ago talking about my strengths and what do I want to be remembered for. And I still go back to it kind of every year and look back on it. And, when I look at it, I want to say, I want people to think Channing helped me in my career. Channing helped me to get to be where I am now. And ideally, they're successful. But success can be defined however they want it to be. So success isn't just I got a bigger title or I got paid more. Success could be, I moved out in a van and living, surfing now. I'm happy with that. That's success. But Channing helped me define that success in my career. I would love that. I would love that for being the way people thought about me and reflected on me in the future.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. Jenny, how can listeners best find you or follow you and your mission?
Definitely. I think LinkedIn is the best way. I tend to post, I try for twice a week on LinkedIn with a variety of topics, leadership topics and or MarTech topics. They bounce between the two. Sometimes mix in a little bit of sales in there as well, just sales best practices. But I'd say LinkedIn is the best way. So you can just look me up on LinkedIn, Channing Ferrer. If you're interested in my social, personal life, you're welcome to follow me on other social media as well. I keep everything open-ended, but LinkedIn's more the business strategy side of me.
Very good. Channing Ferrer, Brevo. Thank you for sharing today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Graham. Take care.
Here.